Welcome to the Overview of Pre-Identification of Students for State Assessments session. This session will give you an overview of how pre-identification of students for state assessments works for each of the assessments. This will help you understand the process and need for pre-identification of students and the tools that are available on the Secure Site to help you ensure all students are pre-identified correctly. Pre-identification on the Secure Site is required for all state assessments. With the WIDA Screener, the student information along with the student scores are entered into the Secure Site after the test has been administered and scored by the school. Pre-identification creates a student record for the specific assessment, which includes a barcode number for students whether testing online or paper and pencil. The barcode number is used by the vendor when providing OEAA student testing data and is needed to ensure it is associated with the correct student and assessment. For all paper and pencil state assessments, a student barcode label is required to be placed on the student's answer document. Students pre-identified by OEAA's posted deadline, barcode labels will be printed and shipped to the school. Students pre-identified after the posted deadline still require barcode labels to be placed on their answer documents. In this case, schools will need to print barcode labels from the OEAA Secure Site. If an answer document is returned without a barcode label, the test may not be scored, or it may be attributed to the incorrect school or student. WIDA Access and WIDA Alternate Access for ELLs cannot be printed from the OEAA Secure Site. You should follow directions in the Michigan WIDA manual for those assessments. Students that are pre-identified on the Secure Site for online testing will be transferred to the vendor's online testing management system. This will allow schools in the online testing management system to manage the test sessions, print test tickets, select student supports and accommodations, and monitor all online testing. So how are students pre-identified for testing? OEAA pre-identifies for most assessments using a one-time pull of student enrollment data from the Michigan Student Data System, also known as MSDS. This is a one-time pull and does not continue through testing. Districts and schools are responsible to pre-identify additional students directly on the OEAA Secure Site. For the MSTEP, SAT, PSAT, and WorkKeys assessments, OEAA will use the Fall General Collection from MSDS. This is the school's October Student Count Day data. OEAA will also use Student Record Maintenance Files, also known as SRMs, that are submitted prior to our download from MSDS. We will pre-identify students in the appropriate assessment for grades 3 through 11 and any required grade 12. This will not be an ongoing pull of data from MSDS. Schools will be expected to pre-ID additional students directly on the Secure Site through the end of testing. Pre-ID starts in January for the MSTEP, SAT, PSAT, and WorkKeys. A benchmark assessment in grades K through 3 is required under the Read by Grade 3 law. Schools can choose from several commercial tests or the Michigan Department of Education's Early Literacy and Mathematics Benchmark Assessment for grades K through 12. MDE's assessment is available in the fall, winter, and spring. Since OEAA does not know in the fall which schools will choose to participate in the Early Literacy and Mathematics Benchmark Assessments, OEAA does not pre-identify students. Schools that are participating are responsible for pre-identification of students directly on the Secure Site through the end of testing for the fall. The fall pre-identification starts in August. For the winter administration, OEAA will pre-ID students that completed the assessment in the fall. The winter pre-identification starts in November. For the spring administration, OEAA will pre-identify students that completed either one or both the fall and winter assessments. The spring pre-identification starts in February. Schools will be expected to pre-identify any additional students that will be testing directly in the Secure Site. Participation in the MyAccess Functional Independence, which is also known as FI, MyAccess Participation, also known as P, and MyAccess Supported Independence, also known as SI, are based on a student's individual educational plan, also known as an IEP. Because OEAA does not have access to IEPs, we cannot accurately pre-identify students for the MyAccess assessments. All students are pre-identified to the standard assessments, which are MSTEP, PSAT 8, SAT, and WorkKeys. Students can be copied from MSTEP to MyAccess FI, P, or SI using the Mass Update Assessments function in the OEAA Secure Site. Schools are responsible for removing students from MSTEP, PSAT 8, SAT, and WorkKeys and ensuring students are pre-identified to MyAccess directly on the Secure Site through the end of testing. Some students may take some content areas in the standard assessments and some in the MyAccess assessment, and then should be pre-identified to both with the correct content area selected. Pre-identification for MyAccess assessment starts in January. The WIDA Access for ELLs is the state's assessment to monitor the progress of the English learner students, also known as ELs. OEAA will use the Fall General Collection in MSDS, which is the October Student Count Day, and SRM files to pre-identify students in grades K through 12. OEAA will only pre-identify students that have been submitted in MSDS in an English learner program. Only SRM files that are submitted through the date posted by OEAA will be pulled from MSDS for pre-identification in addition to the Fall General Collection. This usually happens in December. This will not be an ongoing pull of data from MSDS. Schools will be expected to pre-ID additional English learner students directly on the Secure Site through the end of testing. The pre-identification for WIDA Access for ELLs start in December. Participation in the WIDA Alternate Access for ELLs is based on a student's IEP. Since OEAA does not have access to IEPs, we cannot accurately pre-identify students taking the WIDA Alternate Access for ELLs. So all English learner students are pre-identified to the WIDA Access for ELLs. To pre-ID a student to the WIDA Alternate Access for ELLs, the schools will need to set up the student's tier to T in their demographic page for the WIDA, or for a group of students, it can be done on the Mass Update Assessment page of the Secure Site. Pre-identification opens in December. Students that are suspected of being an English learner based on the Home Language Survey are required to take a WIDA Screener. The WIDA Screener is for students in grades K through 12. This assessment is unique that it is given throughout the school year as needed. Students are not pre-identified on the OEAA Secure Site prior to testing. Students taking the online assessment will be added by the school directly into the WIDA AMS system. This is the only state assessment where a student can be entered directly into a system other than the Secure Site. After a student has taken either the online or the paper and pencil screener, the school is responsible for entering the student data and scores into the Secure Site. There are 3 different methods available on the Secure Site for schools to pre-identify students. As you watch along, think about the resources and number of students that you will be pre-identifying when deciding which method will work best for your school. One or more of the pre-ID methods can be used throughout the testing window. One of the methods for a district or school to pre-identify students is a file upload. A file can be created in OEAA's required format, and it can be uploaded to the OEAA Secure Site. The file needs to be either a text or a CSV file. The district pupil accounting person may be able to assist with creating the file. The pre-ID file upload layout document provides the required fields and how they should be formatted. Only the fields that are listed in bold are required to be in the file. Other than using the file upload to pre-identify students for state assessments, you can also use it to upload research codes and report codes for students that are already pre-identified. You can also use the file to load WIDA Screener student information and scores. If you do not have the means to create a file from scratch, you can use the provided template and enter student information by typing directly into it or loading the student information into the template. The required fields on the template are bold. If using the template, you will also need to use the pre-ID file upload layout document to know how each required field should be formatted. The template would need to be saved as a CSV file before loading it into the Secure Site. The pre-ID file layout and pre-ID template can both be found at the bottom of the login page of the Secure Site before logging in. The second way you can pre-identify students is through the MSDS Copy function on the Secure Site. Student data for any number of students can be copied into the Secure Site from MSDS using the MSDS Copy function. You do not need access to MSDS in order to use this function. Depending on how often the district updates the MSDS with new student enrollment information will impact the usefulness of this tool. The data available may only be students that were included in the fall MSDS General Collection, unless the district submits SRMs with new student information on a regular basis. If the district submits new student enrollment information on an SRM file, then this function can be used for students that enrolled after count day. This function can be used to create the student pre-ID record for the WIDA Screener also, but then you would still need to go back in and add the scores to the student's records. The third way to pre-identify a student would be doing them one at a time through the student search function. This is done student by student. And if you are prepared and have the student information such as the UIC number, the student's grade level, and the assessment the student will be taking, it could take as little as 2 minutes per student. It can be quick, but it may not be feasible for a large group of students. You can also use this to change the student's tier if they are taking the paper and pencil WIDA access or the WIDA alternate access for ELLs. When you are ready to enter the WIDA Screener scores for students, you can also enter them through the student search function, the same as you would for pre-identification. The mode of testing is automatically selected for a student when the student is pre-identified for testing. All schools are expected to test online for MSTEP, MyAccess Functional Independence, and Early Literacy and Mathematics Benchmark assessments. The Early Literacy and Mathematics Benchmark assessment is only available online. There is no paper and pencil assessment available. If a school is not able to test their students online for MSTEP or MyAccess FI, the school would need to submit an online testing waiver from the Secure Site in the fall. A waiver is not needed if the school is testing most of the students online, but have a few that will need to use paper and pencil for testing. When students are pre-identified to a testing cycle by either OEAA or the school, the mode of testing will automatically be set. If the test is available online, then the testing mode will be set for online. If the school has an approved online testing waiver, then the testing mode will be set for paper and pencil. If the test is only available in paper and pencil, then the testing mode will be set for paper and pencil. If schools are pre-identified for MyAccess SI or MyAccess P, they will be set for online. Even though the tests are administered by staff using paper and pencil materials, the staff must enter the student scores online. Therefore, the test is considered online and cannot be changed to paper and pencil. The testing mode for a student can be changed from online to paper and pencil or from paper and pencil to online through the student's demographic screen or through the Mass Update Assessments function on the OEAA Secure Site. It is important to have the correct mode of testing to ensure a barcode label can be retrieved or for a printed and paper and pencil test, and that a student's information is transferred into the online testing system for testing. Another function on the Secure Site that is used during the pre-identification of students and at other times is the Mass Update Assessment page. One of the functions that you will find useful during pre-identification is the ability to copy students from one assessment to another. For example, students taking the MME must be pre-identified to the SAT WorkKeys, and MSTEP. If you pre-identify new students to SAT, you could then copy them over to WorkKeys and then to MSTEP as a group. Another way to use the copy function would be to copy students pre-identified to MSTEP to the My Access assessments. For the WIDA Access for ELLs, you can change the tier to T for a group of students to identify them as taking the WIDA alternate access for ELLs. Another function that is helpful during pre-identification is the ability to change the mode of testing for a group of students and to unassign a group of students from a test or from specific content areas. You can also add reporting codes and search research codes for a group of students. These may be helpful uses for this function on the OEAA Secure Site. Once pre-identification has started, you can run a pre-ID student report to get a full list of students that have been pre-identified for an assessment. The student will display on the report immediately after being pre-identified for the test. On this report, you can verify students are assigned to the correct tests, content areas, grade level, mode of testing, and displaying the correct student graphics. For the WIDA Access and WIDA Alternate Access, if you do not have a student barcode for the paper and pencil test, you will place the district and school label on the student's test. This district/school label is set with your WIDA materials. You will also need to complete all student information on the test along with the student's barcode number from the OEAA Secure Site. You can easily obtain barcode numbers for students on the pre-ID report. You can find detailed instructions and videos for the functions mentioned and many others in this presentation at www.michigan.gov/securesitetraining. This concludes the overview of pre-identification for state assessments. Thank you for watching, and please feel free to submit any questions or suggestions to mde-oeaa@michigan.gov or call 877-560-8378 and select option 3 from the phone menu.